Let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my name's Kevin. Welcome to our first session of the series, Growth and ABM, Tactics Unlocked by AI and Automation. Again, this will be the first session in a three-part series of sessions to help you unlock faster growth and better results with limited resources. MarketerHire and Clay have partnered together to help highlight use cases and success stories they've seen used in the field. My name is Kevin Charette, and I'm happy to be joined today by Bruno and Davide, who I'll introduce in a moment. So just some housekeeping items. Today's session is going to be recorded, so the recording will be shared with you soon via email. And please feel free to use the Q&A section to submit questions. We'll have a Q&A session at the end and try to answer as many as we can. And then if you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out at marketerhire.com. We'll be happy to help. So in today's session, we'll be covering the following topics. First, we're going to quickly set the stage why it's absolutely imperative that your growth marketing program adopts AI and automation in 2025. Then our guests will take turns showcasing real powerful tactics that they use to hit their growth marketing and ABM goals. They'll break down what each tactic helps them to do, which tools they use to automate it, and why it's an important part of their GTM approach. Finally, they'll showcase an end-to-end success story and describe what it is to make it happen. And then again, at the end, we'll have the chance to answer a lot of your questions. So let's go ahead and start with our introduction. So our first guest is Bruno. Bruno, do you mind taking a second to introduce yourself and explain Clay?
Yeah, for sure. So nice to meet everyone. I'm Bruno. I lead growth marketing here at Clay. Before that, I led growth marketing at Webflow for 5 years. And for those who are not super familiar with Clay, Clay is basically we sort of like on a super high level, we try to say that Clay is kind of this creative tool for growth teams in general. But it basically enables you to bring any data that you want to this kind of like a table UI environment. And Clay enables you to enrich this data with any type of data source that you need or data enrichment. And you can use AI to leverage that data foundation to enrich with more qualitative aspects of this profile, or to build messaging around this data that you have. And then after that, you can send this data to anywhere, to your CRM, to email sending platforms, or to CMSs in general, as we'll kind of go through some of these examples here. But yeah, super excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bruno. And then our next guest is Davide. Davide, could you take a moment to introduce yourself and explain Verkada?
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. Davide from Italy, I guess. I started in growth roughly 4 years ago, actually in London office, covering the EMEA region for Verkada. The last 2 years, I've been relocated to the Bay Area, so I'm kind of managing and handling North America growth efforts. Obviously, we have a lot of focus on automation, process optimization. Just in a nutshell, what Verkada does is nothing to do with go-to-market like Clay. We are kind of leaders in cloud physical security. So think about cameras, door access, sensors, alarms, everything that goes into your building for a business, right? It's all consolidating into one platform on the cloud. We kind of have a relatively large sales organization, sales and marketing org, and we use a lot of tools such as Clay and others to kind of help us scale.
Great. Thank you, Davide. And then again, my name is Kevin Charette. I'm a go-to-market consultant specializing in B2B tech software companies. Been doing this for 2 years full time and have worked at some great Series A to C companies like Drone Deploy, FieldWire, et cetera. And then I'm part of the MarketerHire ecosystem of freelance marketers. All right. So just also to give you some context, if you're new to Marketer Hire is a freelance marketplace that has a very high bar basically for you to connect with the top 1% of marketers, allowing you to get the best results on your schedule and budget. So if you want to take a look at it, go to that website there and browse around. And then also, Marketer Hire is also starting to create AI agents to help support and boost sales, support customers, and manage your data, all on kind of an automation basis. So if you're interested, you can also feel free to fill out that wait list at marketerhire.com/AI-enablement. All right, great. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I wanted to just kind of set the stage for where we are today and why AI and automation have become non-negotiables basically in 2025. Um, AI has been, growing substantially over the last few years. And according to Salesforce, Salesforce survey, 86% of IT professionals believe AI will play a significant role in their organizations down the line. Among its many use cases, AI is very helpful for marketing and sales purposes. If it's implemented correctly, they can trim the fat from your sales cycle and ensure faster, more abundant conversations. But the power of AI goes way beyond simple ChatGPT text prompts. More and more marketing tools are implementing AI features built right into growth marketers' everyday workflows. And many platforms are beginning to combine multiple AI use cases to accomplish some seriously advanced automations that enable growth tactics that were impossible or unrealistic to accomplish before. And as we look to some of the benefits of AI, obviously there's a huge cost effectiveness and ROI increase. If I think about, what we had to do from like an account scoring perspective, just even 3 or 4 years ago when I was at Heap, we had to do a lot of, we had to get a VA or scrapers basically off of Upwork, to help find all the data that we needed to basically fuel our account scoring model. And now, we can get software like Clay that can help plug in some of those questions immediately and just run the whole list of accounts right in there and not have to do that waiting. And then also it obviously puts the onus on your software rather than your people. So rather than having reps going in and updating information in your CRM and doing all of that, you basically have a plug and play software tool that can help assist that. And then that brings in scalability. Obviously, as you generate information faster, you can scale a lot faster. You can get all the data that you need, all of the workflows that you need done a lot quicker. And then obviously, there's the concept of first adopters and ending up everybody doing the same thing. But if you're getting in early, this is definitely a competitive advantage compared to some other, maybe bigger companies that are still getting their feet wet. If you're early stage startup, AI and automation is definitely a place to invest time in with limited resources and having the ability to move quickly. All right, so I'm going to pass this over to Bruno, who's going to go through some specific examples and tactics that Clay powers people to do. Bruno, I'll give the screen over to you.
So yeah, just to give it some context for everyone here, these examples that we're gonna give are things that we do internally here at Clay to one, speed up our processes and implement some growth campaigns. These are things that we believe a lot of marketers tend to do, both from like a mostly focus on a demand generation, growth marketing perspective. So yeah, and we'll kind of go through starting. The first two are going to be the first one is going to be a little bit more simple, and as you can see, as we go through some of these, we'll go ahead and become they're going to be a little bit more advanced. So yeah, excited to get started and show you some of the things that we've been doing here from both data aggregation, enrichment, and automation point of view. So yeah, I think the first one will sort of like show, which is something that it's very, I'm gonna combine mostly the 1 and 3 there, which I think as a marketer or someone running um, demand gen or growth marketing, trying to automate and sort of prioritize your inbound leads tend to be something that a lot of people tend to do. And like as a someone that drives a lot of the top of funnel here at Clay, I tend to pay a lot of attention on what are the leads that are bringing in and how can we one categorize them, because I imagine a lot of people here also have different types of ICPs. And then now that we have this data, what can we do to actually run these campaigns? So I think the easiest way will be if I can just share my screen here, because it'll be sort of just talking about it feels a little bit in a surface area. I'm just gonna replace current share here. So this is actually like something that we do quite a lot here at Clay, which one common source of data that people have is type form, right? This can be anywhere. This can be your like it can be your um like a Webflow form or anywhere from like your CRM in general. But on this table, we're bringing someone who sort of like um came over through this form, and you can see that we have their email, their first name. First of all, we're using Clay to sort of like enrich the company and find this person. This is actually Varun, our co-founder. And we can see that we're bringing employee count and everything in here. The one thing that it starts to get interesting in that when we start to use AI is a lot of the times instead of asking for the person's information, you can go ahead and like use a prompt to um, ask, in this case, AI here in Claygen, which is our AI model, to go through their profile and figure out the actual role, right? And as you can see here, this is like the output, and we have the role of co-founder and head of operations. And from I'll give you an example from Clay's perspective. We have multiple types of personas within the product, and I imagine for everyone here is the same. And some personas are more valuable than the others. So what we're doing here as well is start to separate and break these out into specific groups, right? So if someone is a C-level executive, put them in one group, right? If they're a manager level, put them in another group. If our model thinks this is a junior role, put them on a separate group. Just so you as a marketer and as a go-to-market function, you can start to prioritize and know who you should talk to. This is like one, and based on this information, you can now put if this person is qualified or not, right? The other thing that we're doing here using AI is to using Collagen to sort of like visit the domain and tell us what are the companies that this specific, in our case, this is Clay, but is actually what are the companies that you have listed as case studies, right? In our case, we have, or they have it as customers in general. In this case, and then we have this prompt here. And in this case, we do have Intercom and Anthropic as customers and listed in our website. These are like additional data points that will help us start to prioritize um, these campaigns and get additional data points to help you with your outreach process. The other thing that we added was like, oh, what are some recent news about this company, right? And same thing, we have this sort of this prompt that enables you to go ahead and like, hey, assume you're a company news researcher, and can you actually go ahead and find anything related to Clay that happened in somewhere recent. And what do we do here is based on these people that are coming through on your inbound form, you grab the information, right? The data as the foundation. Use AI to find additional data points You group these people into different types of groups. And then now what you're doing is you're actually using all of this data to generate a sales, like a sales pitch, right? Then you can send this data that you have here in Clay to wherever you want, to your email sending platform, to your CRM, so you can start to automate these this outreach flow using data and AI to do research. Very similar to what Kevin mentioned. Back in the day, like 8 years ago, I used to do a lot of these things using like leveraging VAs, or trying to do some sort of or having engineering resources. Now this really helps us move much faster, and actually improve the outreach process. So this is like one very simple use case that we do here. David and Kevin, any thoughts, anything that comes to mind as you're going through this?
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind here is that there's, as you think about adding fields, to a form, I think the rule is like 10% drop off for every form field that you add. So things like this can have a huge impact to any campaigns you're running, because if you get the information through another means outside of asking them directly, it can impact your lead conversion pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been testing this too. We don't use Clay transparently for this use case, but we dropped all the fields on the main demo page and we kind of try to source them in alternative ways. There was a question in the chat. All these things, I think, Bruno, you can find in the templates, right, on your website?
Yeah. I'll make sure that I send a lot of these. We have a lot of these templates. I'll make sure to send these. Cool. So yeah, these two are kind of like simple use cases. I think one that is also interesting that will show some of the creativity that you can have in here too is if we show the personalized landing pages. I think these are, yeah, this one exactly, which is not something super intuitive when you think of Clay in general. But I think like the one thing to keep in mind is for Clay, since we have all of this data, right, like that you're bringing, that you're enriching and sort of like and using in general, you can kind of do whatever you want with this data. And so one thing that we've done and then we continue to do now is actually to build landing pages using this data, right? So let me go ahead and share again, and I can kind of show you what we have in mind here. Cool. So this is actually like something that we do here internally, and which is we have a named account list, right? These like just like some random examples that we pulled. And we have companies like Loom and like Drift is in here as well. And as you can see, we have a lot of data around these companies, right? Like you can bring all this data in, the LinkedIn profile. The one thing that it's sort of like interesting is if anyone here has done any sort of like list building, you know that sometimes when you pull company data, the 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 overall names can look kind of weird, right? So one interesting use case here in Clay for to clean this data is to actually just so like normalize the company name, right? And make sure it's actually something that's readable for the user and doesn't look weird as you're doing the outreach process. So you can see here that we start to actually pull a lot of these data points from like what are some of the hero paragraphs that we want to have. What's the actual tech stack that this company uses? If they use Salesforce or if they use HubSpot, what are the top customers that they are showing there? The role count, and you can see that this goes very like what are their logos. The other piece too that it's sort of like interesting, and you'll see that why this is relevant is we're actually bringing their logo color, and I'll show you why this will be relevant, but just so we can actually personalize this even more. And the other piece that it's very interesting here is we are determining based on specific things on their site if this company is sales led or if they are self-serve, right? In our case, is because for companies using Clay, that the way that they use Clay, it is actually different if they're a sales-led company or if they're a self-serve company. From a self-serve perspective, they tend to rely a lot on data enrichment and a lot on prioritization of their inbound leads. If they're a sales-led company, they tend to focus a lot on outbound, building outbound motions in general. So it's a very important data point for us. And so we can kind of see here that we have all of these data points. The reason why I'm showing this is because then we're sending all of this data to Webflow, which is what we use for our CMS. And you can see that we're actually sending all of these data points as CMS fields and also on the CMS template. And the reason is as then we go ahead and generate these pages from the data points that we're using in Clay. The reason why we extracted the brand colors is because we want to make sure that the page contains the brand colors. And you can see here that we have a drift as the company. We're using the brand colors around. And you can see that we use the data point that we had for that they use Salesforce. And we have this specific section showing Salesforce. If they were to use HubSpot, we would actually show HubSpot here. And we know that Drift has a self-serve motion, so we mentioned about enriched signups. But also they also have some sort of like a sales-led motion as well. And so this is like one example of, and the way that we actually trigger this is if someone from Drift visits our website, we actually add a banner there. So this is like another example of leveraging the data that you bring in here and send it to a different place, not only in an email sending platform, but to a CMS, which is like a different use case that most people are not as used to, and it kind of pushes the boundaries of what you can do with Clay and how personalized it can be here. Davide, I know you guys have been doing some of these things at Verkada, right?
Yeah, I think you copied it from us. Didn't
Probably.
Yeah, I think Talia from my team built some of these landing pages. So I'm going to talk about it a bit later, actually, in my section.
Oh,
but
cool.
it's
Awesome.
pretty cool.
Awesome. Okay, this other one is kind of like another interesting one that people can use or can do in Clay. And this one is actually going to use some different sources. And it's something that like some of our team members have done in the past. And I think I'm pretty big on influencers, on especially on the B2B side. I think this is like one area that you can kind of really stand out and try to be a little bit more uh genuine. I know it might sound weird, like paying someone to talk about you, but most people want to see like other people talking about your company and not necessarily just like the company profile. So this specific workflow is something that we've done in the past a few times. And this is actually something that one of our someone here internally has worked with. Um, they had a separate business and they built this, which is kind of like a very interesting workflow. Let me just show some of the stuff. And this one specifically actually starts from doing searches on Google, which is something that I think most people are not familiar that you could do in Clay. And we actually use that to analyze SEO pages. We actually use this to analyze what are the terms that are ranking on specific queries. But this is like a different workflow here. So as you can see here, we have this sort of like table that starts with a Google search. And I think this is common on a lot of the things. Sometimes it's tough to find what are the right influencers or people that for specific industries. If you're in B2B, LinkedIn sort of like makes sense, right? But if you're not on B2B, that's when things start to get tricky. And sometimes you are on B2B, but like your specific industry is not super active. Um, so what we've done here and what you can do yourself is actually start from a Google search. So you can start with like a specific Google search. In this case, you can see that this is like clean energy influencers, right? And what Clay will do is actually will pull the actual results here for these specific for this specific search query. So and then additionally, and what you can do is actually use ClayGen to visit these specific pages and pull the names of these influencers. Um, and you can see here this is basically the query. Go into this link and pull the actual names of these people that are coming through, right? And what we're doing here is actually okay. We brought in all these influencers, like we see that we found specific roles, and then we're sending these influencers to a separate table. This is like one example here. And so it found the influencers using ClayGen, and then we went ahead and found the posts, right? And then we're sending the posts all the way here. And as you can see, we have all the post data and everything, like all the number of comments, the number of reactions, the total engagement, and then what we're doing to analyze this specific data. So basically what this helps you is one, find influencers in a kind of like on a creative way, not only relying on the typical LinkedIn data, which you would be able to do here in Clay as well. But what you can do is use Google search, use ClayGen to analyze the search results and pull these data, this specific data for you, and then send it to a different table, as you can see here, a different tab here, then grab the posts. And what we do is, okay, we send to a Google Sheet. So you can start to see just like all the posts and the data specifically. And we're looking at like how is performance in general for these specific influencers that we might want to partner or that we already partner with. So we can sort of like start to both find new people in an unusual way, identify who they are, and evaluate if their engagement is strong or not to see if you want to go ahead and partner with them. So this is like another sort of like use case that it's not super intuitive that you sort of like when it because I think from a company perspective, you think of Clay as, oh, you can do these types of you can do outreach or outbound. But like I said, like the reason why I sort of described as this sort of creative tool is because since you have the data foundation with AI enables you to do many different things, right? This is like another one that you could actually do, and you can sort of like automate, and can put you on a different edge against competitors in general. Cool. Any thoughts? Anything in general from this?
So there was a question, and I kind of plus one in a way. Um, how do you deal with people faking followers, faking engagement, like basically with all the nice results of the Clay table being kind of fake news?
Yeah, this is tricky. The one sort of like um metric that we tend to pay attention is how many followers they have and what's the engagement on posts and try to see that ratio of engagement per follower, because what we tend to see, there's a lot of people with like more than 100K followers, especially on LinkedIn, um that when they post something, you get like zero engagement. And sometimes it's actually better to go with people that have like a lower volume of total followers, but the engagement is really strong. Um, so that's like one piece. The
Have you
other
noticed, sorry to interrupt, have you noticed people clearly writing AI replies to create
that's
fake engagement?
that's what's sort of like making it difficult now, which is like now there's like AI comments and engagement pods in general as well. That's the tricky part. I think that's the most difficult one that I think you kind of I think like you can use these types of workflows to sort of like eliminate 70% of the research, right? And help you prioritize. The last piece of like decision making, I think it needs to be like more qualitative. You have to go in there and like see how are the actual posts? Do people actually do these actually make sense, or does it seem like AI generated, right? Or from like an engagement pod in general. So I think we need at the end you have to sort of like review and decide who you should partner with. But yeah, this is like, have you ran into something like this, Davide?
Yes, in fact, we're dealing with this right now. We're trying to figure out what to do with. I mean, clearly, most of the comments in some of the posts to this influencer are AI written,
Mm,
or they have a lot of strange friends or followers. So we're trying to figure out what to do, basically.
mm. Got it. Got it.
Um, so on my side, I guess, as probably every other growth company, we've tried a bunch of the new fancy AI tools in the last 1 to 2 years, right? There's 10 new every week. I think what I selected for this presentation is probably not the sexiest that we've tried, but the one that we actually think are solid, right? And what we're trying, the theme is be more efficient, eliminate manual work that doesn't add any value, right? So that people can actually focus their time on uh, more value-added activities, right? What I'm not gonna talk about is, oh, I got some AI agents, they completely replace sales or SDR functions by doing everything themselves. Not because I don't believe in it necessarily, but for a B2B large company that is very sales driven, I think Verkada, with a long sales cycle, we have a lot of stakeholders in every deal. I do think the human component is and will always be pretty important, right? So I think my job as growth is to enable sales to be better at what they do, not to replace them. And I think I might be wrong on this, but I think that's the way we are kind of investing at Verkada. So if you go to the next page, the first use case is pretty basic. Like this is not kind of rocket science. So we leverage LinkedIn to try to make our campaigns more effective. So this is true for social media campaigns, but it's also true for direct mail. So with the LinkedIn profile, it helps us increase pretty substantially the match rate on social media, right? The reason this is important, especially when you do kind of upscale, kind of upmarket enterprise stuff, you really care only about very few people. So doubling your match rate on and showing the ads to the people you really want, it is pretty impactful, right? It is pretty important. And some of these automation tools have helped us do that. And I'm pretty happy about it. The other use case is kind of cool and came out of the same initiative, but kind of different use case is LinkedIn also tells you some things that you can use to give to your sales org and make them better at what they do, right? For example, we tell the sales org this person went to Stanford or whatever, like whatever university that they went to. And usually the rep can use this to send a nice hat, right? Some sort of swag from the school. It's like a cold opener that it's a bit more personalized than the usual cookies or whatever that we send, right? So we try to give ideas that will help the reps do their prospecting look like they actually spent hours researching the person, which clearly they didn't, right? So that's how we try to help. The second use case is pretty much similar to what Bruno has mentioned. roughly a year ago, I took on the upmarket side of Verkada, the enterprise, like very large customers. So obviously what we try to do there is a bit more custom, is a bit more personalized than just showing the same thing to everyone. However, what I realized is we had 2 full-time employees that were dedicating hours every week into producing hundreds and hundreds of landing pages. All kind of the same, like let's say industry-based, with a logo on a couple of tokens. And a big portion of their weeks was just spent like producing an infinite amount of landing pages. So then we looked at Google Analytics. How many people are looking at these pages? There were usually 2 on average, right? One was the person creating the landing page. One was the rep requesting the landing page. Nobody was looking at them, right? So we were spending hours doing this. Nobody was looking at it. However, some companies actually engaged with those landing pages and brought deals that were pretty relevant, right? So takeaway was, it seems like this thing is valuable, but we should probably not spend a lot of time every week on this, which is why this project kind of started. I like the idea of doing landing pages. I hate the idea of have someone from Harvard spending hours every week doing it, right? So we use Clay for this use case. Pretty similar to what you said, right? Right now we have these building blocks, sub-industry or industry base. When the rep requests one of these landing page, the landing page creates itself, right? It's 95% the same as what the human was actually creating. If anything, it's better because the rep can request specific use cases in their form. They have a form, like a submission, and these get populated into the landing pages. What I also love is that when we change the building blocks in the backend, I don't know, we change the warranty from 10 years to 8 years, we can change the building blocks and it updates on all the 200 pages. And another thing that was worrying me before is what are we going to do with all these pages when they become stale and they're out there somewhere? So this is like not necessarily enhancing what we were doing before, just try to reallocate people's time in something that is a bit more valuable, I guess.
Davide, one question on this. When are you showing these pages to these prospects? Is like the seller is going in and showcasing, hey, here's what we built, or are you doing this programmatically and like through ads or whatever? Yeah, how are you sort of like showing that to the account?
We do a bit of both, right? Their sales reps do a lot of prospecting themselves, usually on LinkedIn. They like to use these pages. That's why they request them, right? Now the debate is do people click on these pages? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We also do some stuff programmatically on our side, but it is obviously like depends on the way I see it is if it's really a cold contact, you don't want to send a link, like because people are probably not going to open it and maybe they're not even going to see the emails in the first place because they go to spam. So the reps like it because when they're already engaging within an account, it's pretty easy to share this landing page and people read everything that needs to be known. Nice. So the last one is kind of similar, right? We have a pretty significant direct mail program in terms of the budget spent. We work pretty closely with sales so that we can basically decide together who to send to. Which obviously the problem number one is the address, right? If we send the package to the wrong address, it's the same as not sending the package minus $40 or whatever you spend, right? So historically, the way we've done address verification, and we still do to an extent, is with some app workers, right? The way it works, you send them a CSV. These are the people I really care about to send a nice direct mail package. They process it and they send it back, right? As we kind of scale this program of collaboration with sales, the pain point was we need speed, right? A sales rep is excited about this collaboration, this campaign, if you can be fast. You cannot tell them, I'm going to send them a package in a month and a half because they're not going to care anymore, right? So what we did is we basically use some sort of waterfall approach to get the address and verify the address. Is it as accurate as the humans? My gut instinct is no, right? It's slightly worse, arguably worse, but it's good enough, right? To in the grand scheme of things, I think it's good enough. Keeps momentum with the reps. You send the package out pretty quickly. And you can use various things, right? The main issue we experience on this is you have a massive account. They have 40 offices. You have a dude that you want to send it to. What office is the right one? It's not as simple as it seems, right? When you ask some info, it's gonna probably tell you the HQ, right? And so by looking at LinkedIn profile, you look where the person is based. You see I'm based in San Francisco, so most likely out of the 20 offices of Verkada, I'm in the Bay Area one, right? So this is one of the approaches kind of we use. So we still have the humans, but it's for very specific use cases. For the kind of like bulk campaigns, we try to do without. It's not perfect, but it kind of works.
Yeah, looking at the LinkedIn profile, location is very, very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I've heard some of these companies doing, like the Sendosos of the world doing, is that if you have the email, you can send the email in advance to ask for their location, especially in the remote world that we live in.
Yeah.
It can also help.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of boils back to the point, are you doing a cold campaign or a warm campaign? Because if you do a cold campaign to someone who never heard about Clay, let's say, and you say, click this link to get a gift, it's pretty sus, right? So
Yeah.
I would not click it. If it's like someone you're actively engaging in, then they will. But the reality of our direct mail program, we try to, it's like an icebreaker, right? Like for
Yeah.
us.
All right, great. So it seems like we had a few questions come in, but feel free to also just keep adding if you have any questions. First question in the list, what
Oh.
single growth strategy or tactic should an experienced vet be most focused on building in this new era of AI?
I do think like one thing here, there's no silver bullet. There's not like one specific tactic that will sort of like make or break your business. I think the main thing is um I think like when you think of like what makes your campaign stand out is, well, something that we actually say here quite a lot is like g good go-to-market motion start with great data. So if you have the right data from either it's complete data or if it's clean data or if it's relevant data, if you have that as the foundation, anything else becomes much, much easier. So I think like investing on the data infrastructure for these campaigns is what will sort of like enable you to do many different things because it really depends on your business, your go-to-market motion. For example, the things that work really well for Verkada might not work for us as a product here at Clay, right? So, but as long as both of the companies have the right data foundation, you can sort of like leverage whatever tactic you want. Um, yeah, so that's like I know it's not the ideal answer, but I think that's what comes to mind. Anything comes to mind, Davide?
I think my view is what people should not be focusing on, and they actually are. And that's just my view, right? I get a lot of cold emails, unfortunately, right? 50 to 100 a day, I would say. And because I own a budget. And so a lot of people seems to be leveraging AI to write some weird cold openers. That's maybe partially Clay fault, but so you cannot imagine how many emails a week I get saying, "Oh, I hear you're from Italy. Do you like pizza?" or this kind of stuff. I will not buy a product because you recognize that I'm Italian, right? And I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, this AI thing makes me have a personal connection. I don't think that is true. Either you want to buy or you don't want to buy, right? Personal connection might happen if you meet someone in person over a drink or whatever, dinner, but not because you say that I'm Italian. So what I think I'm more excited about is try to use AI to find out if we all agree that only 5% of the market is going to buy today, who is this 5%? Instead of shoving to the entire 100% emails with a cold opener. I heard you're from San Mateo. Do you like pausa? Right? Like the restaurant one is another one that is very common. I think that's kind of what everyone, including myself at the beginning, you think, oh, I'm going to do these amazing openers. It's going to sound so personal. The problem is when everyone does it, right? It's like when the Federal Reserve prints money, right? You just create inflation of content and nobody cares anymore. You can understand it's done with Clay or whatever, with one of these tools that nobody cares, right? That's, I think, what people need to refocus a bit. At least that's what we've done internally. Like, I think it was a mistake at the beginning to obsess about what's a cool opener that I can do to get people excited about my cold email that they don't want to get in the first place.
100%. I think when it comes to like cold outreach specifically, um, timing and relevancy is the most important things. Like if the timing is off, like you might have the perfect audience, the product might be the perfect fit for that audience. If they're not looking for it, like no one's gonna buy it, right? Um, and you can kind of use whatever you want. So I think identifying the timing of these of when to reach out is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I would add to that, like there's kind of the, evergreen campaign that you can run to everybody, but then there's also this like idea of micro campaigns that you kind of do in part DG and sales dev where you prioritize a list, maybe it's like a portion of the overall, target list that the company put together, but you're specializing the campaign towards that moment that those folks are um, are going to be a part of. So like an example would be like an event coming up, and that those companies are going to be going to that event, and you have a small dinner that's ancillary to that event. So things like that can all also drive really high engagement because not only are you, obviously focusing on the right accounts, but you're focusing on the right accounts based on that point in time and that campaign that could be very relevant to them. All right, let's skip to the next slide. I think there's another one. Do you suggest leveraging AI and or automation to trigger customer focused growth tactics, or is it too risky to sacrifice the quality of the customer relationship? So rather than prospects, I think this question is more specific to companies that are already paying you, and maybe your intention is more upsell and or retention. So I don't know if either of you guys have experience or thoughts on this.
So I have we don't my team is mostly focused on net new, so we don't do a lot of customer upsell yet. What I can tell you is one of the tools that we use, it's extremely powerful in my opinion, to read through all the account and contact history that we have, right? All the past interactions basically on various different channels. And it's the only tool that I've seen writing content that is actually good. Like if I would do it at scale, I wouldn't be able to have an email that is good. Obviously, this is a small part of the population, which is people that have interacted with us a lot. Maybe they had some objections about pricing or whatever. But on that front, I was very surprised because it's really exciting. On the customers, I mean, I don't want to think about it yet. I might have soon to think about it because we are starting to do it. It's just very risky, right? Because sure, like what I really think is with actual paying customers, a lot of the business is done on stuff that is not tracked by Salesforce. Personal phone, you send them a WhatsApp, whatever, or an iMessage. And so it's a bit risky.
Yeah, I think it also really depends on like the type of like your customer segment that you're going after, right? If it's like an ABM campaign, for example, like to your top tier account, you probably don't want to like automate literally everything. What you can do is to empower the seller to with research and everything, so they can take the action and review and then implement the specific tactic that you're going after. But if it's like a very large scale, like a large volume with like tier 3 to 4 accounts, you can experiment and see if this thing will work. But yeah, I think it really depends on the types of customers and accounts that you're going after too.
Yeah, I
So
was about to say the same thing. I think if you're targeting, if you're talking about your accounts that are paying, the lion's share of your revenue, definitely leverage AI to help, pop up something that's interesting to their CSM. But yeah, if you're working with like small contracts, like tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars a month, then there's definitely room to leverage there. All right, we'll do one last question since we're at the 3 minute mark, and then close out since we're already about 15 minutes over. Is there another slide after this, or do we want? Okay, what marketing data have you found to be the most effective to personalize for success and growth in outbound campaigns? Let's try to keep the answers like under a minute. Bruno, Davide, thoughts?
Because Americans care a lot about their university, I cannot relate about it, but the university swag kind of things, it's pretty lazy thing, but it's powerful.
yeah, I think for us, I think this is something that we do at Clay because of our go-to-market motion. One thing that works really well for us is like this sort of like we have this whole theme around warm intros. So we look at all of our partners and look at like the customers that they have and see the overlap with our product, and see and if for some reason they have customers that we're not using Clay, we work with them to sort of like to implement any sort of selling motion there. So these go all the way from integration partners to agency partners, and we kind of implement this. This is one that works really well, and even investors as well. This is like one tactic that works really well for us. It's very unique to our go-to-market motion.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for everybody that joined. As we said at the beginning, there will be a recording sent out, and Bruno will include the clay tables as well to help kind of get you guys started. And then, yeah, we'll see you at the next session. I think there's one coming up in a week or so of the 3-part series. So look forward to seeing you guys there.
Welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Guys, thank you.